This is going smashingly. And I was like, excuse me? Excuse me? No. That's not the plan. The plan is I'm carrying.
To be honest, I was not coy about it. I was very mad. I made a YouTube video. It blew the whole thing up.
I write 95% of Matthew's emails.
Welcome to another episode of Who's Your Daddy podcast, where it's our job to educate and explore all of the non-traditional paths to parenthood, including surrogacy, adoption, and foster to adopt. We are your hosts and husbands, Michael and Matt, and today we are talking to Jaimie Kelton from the Queer Family podcast. We're so excited to hear Jaimie's story on IVF, IUI, and her journey with infertility and how she created her family. Hello, Jaimie.
Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, fellas. Hello.
How are you?
I'm
good.
So good to see you.
It's good to see you too. This is like, I feel like we just spend all our time together now. We're like,
We do.
I know,
We
right?
hang out.
podcast
It's like a weekly
BFFs.
hangout.
We do all the things. Yes.
This
Yes.
is great. Yes, Jaimie and I have been talking for a few weeks now, and we've had some calls. We did podcast recording last week for the Queer Family podcast, and this week we're going to hear your story on our podcast. But this is all going out at the same time.
And before that, Jaimie didn't probably know that I was listening to her podcast before we even started talking because she has like probably the longest running, most like comprehensive podcast in the space.
I'm like the grandma of Queer Family podcasts.
You're a
like.
huge
I'm like
inspiration for
I'm Mima.
us. You're Mima.
I'm not even that old. Actually, I am.
No,
Yeah,
you're not.
I think I could be your mother's. I think I could be both.
No,
Oh.
you 100% could not. There's
I don't
absolutely
know.
no way.
I don't know.
There's absolutely
I know
no
it's
way.
not okay to ask age, but
I can tell you. You want to know?
Sure. I don't think there should be shame around age.
I have no shame.
Yeah, that's true.
I use a lot of creams.
Yeah, the skin's flawless. I'm like, I need to learn.
But no, I'm 45. I could be your mother.
You could not. I'm 34.
Oh, I'm 31.
Okay. I
Yeah.
could be your mother, Matt. If I had you, like 14.
That would be.
I have a sister who's older than you.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
I have siblings that are both older than you as well.
Mhm.
So we're basically the same age, is what we're all saying.
We're
Literally.
siblings.
Literally.
Siblings.
Siblings.
Well, before we get into it and get into your story,
Matthew's like, and let's start.
back to the agenda, people.
Both
The
Jaimie and I
point
are
is,
like,
I've
and
been
coffee.
around a while. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, everybody, there is a cliffhanger that you.
Oh wow, he's teasing early.
I am teasing.
Mhm.
Yes. So Michael and I have some pretty big news that is a big change in our
I know what
surrogacy
it
process
is.
and our journey. Jaimie, you know what it is already.
She does.
And
We
in order
dropped
to
it.
hear all of the juicy details of that, after this episode, head over to the Queer Family podcast and listen to Jaimie's episode,
With us.
an interview, and we are going to go into a lot of detail about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. It's a great episode. It's a great interview, and y'all have to go listen to Michael and Matt's story over there because it's good. And we're releasing these on the same exact day, so you have hours of podcast listening right here for your listening and viewing pleasure. All of
Cancel
you at home.
all of your plans.
We have a
There's-
marathon.
You have nothing else that's more important to do today. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and then while you're at it, rate, review, subscribe. You know,
Yes.
just-
Seriously. Those
Send it
rating and
to-
reviews are big deals, aren't they?
Yeah,
Enormous.
and send the
big deals.
episodes to your conservative friends and family
Please,
members.
please, Especially this one. Do you see my shirt?
I love it. That's a
Do
cool
you see-
shirt. I
Can
did
you read
notice
what it says?
Drag. I can't see what it says underneath it.
Underneath it says
Teaching kids to love themselves.
Teaching kids to love themselves.
That's
Guess
a
where
good
I bought
shirt.
this?
Oh, where?
Iowa.
Iowa.
Add
Cedar
it,
Rapids,
add it.
Iowa.
At a
Shout out.
state, Iowa.
We're big fans.
Go ahead.
So
Iowa.
another thing on the agenda, next thing.
Yeah, no, you're doing great. I am clearly not focused.
Well, I also interrupt all the time. I'm sorry. I'm gonna let you do your thing. I'm gonna
It's all good.
keep my
It's all
mouth.
good. Okay.
No,
Quiet.
you're perfect. You're doing
And
great.
keep us
I'm
on
doing
track.
a little ruler slap on Michael's wrists right now. Anyway, Jaimie, we're familiar with your podcast, and the way that you start your podcasts and interviews with guests is you have them give an elevator pitch of who they are and what they're all about.
Mhm.
And it's a 30-second elevator pitch. So we're flipping the table
We
back
are.
onto you.
Oh
I'm
my
sorry for
God.
that, but We want to hear your elevator pitch. Who is
my
Jaimie?
God.
Who's Jaimie? So you have 30 seconds. I don't even think we'll hold up the clock. You know,
No.
I'm just gonna give
I'm gonna
you.
do a timer
I
right
feel
now.
like
I
you've
got
done
it.
this. You've
I
done
got the
this so
timer.
many
I
times.
should have known
Okay,
you were
never
going to do
mind.
this to me because I even said this is what people do to me, and I'm never prepared. I'm not prepared at all. Just everybody, I'm not prepared. So we'll see how this goes.
It's all
I
right.
want to do
Hopefully
like the
you
little
can.
Jeopardy tune in the background just to like make it more suspenseful
We
or
should do
something.
that. That's actually a good idea.
Timer starts now.
Hi. Okay. I'm Jaimie Kelton. I am an actress, an author, a podcaster, and a voiceover actress. And my most recent thing that's been happening for the past 5 years is the Queer Family Podcast, the show that aims to uplift, highlight, celebrate, and normalize LGBTQ families, to let the whole world know that despite the fact that we work really, 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 really hard to make our very intentional families, we're just like every other parent out there trying to get our kids to put their shoes on when they're already 30 minutes late for school and they still haven't gone out the door. Boom.
You're
That's
not supposed to
perfect.
cut her off.
I'm sorry. I was just I don't know how
You
to
got
signal
nervous.
like that.
You got so nervous.
It's my first time doing the timer. I'm sorry. I was like, how do I signal that it's time? Because
We went over. I went over. I need to do better at this.
Only by
this
8
should
seconds.
be
It was
like I
perfect.
should have this figured out and down perfectly. Oh well.
I think we went over by 10 seconds on yours. So
No, I did hours because you were too nervous.
Oh,
and
I was.
I like fumbled through it, and I was just like trying to talk so fast, and I had no idea what to say.
I didn't
literally
breathe.
shaking in my boots.
I
Yeah,
didn't
right?
breathe
I don't
for
think
that
I did
whole
either.
thing. I can't believe I put my guests through this.
We'll all take one
She's like,
collective
wow,
breath
that's actually
together
quite cool.
before we breathe in.
Okay, that was too long.
That was a long breath.
Wow, very ASMR.
I needed that. I really needed that.
Okay, we're good.
Well, Michael, should we start with the stories?
We should, and we should just, I think throw it to Jaimie and have her introduce. I mean, she'd introduced herself obviously already, but wait, we have to get into her fertility journey, her family building process, and that is the next thing. So,
all right. So I am a lesbian. I'm married to my wife, Anne. We have been married 10 years. I always forget. And we've been
Congrats.
together 15.
Oh, that's
No,
amazing.
we've been married 11 years. Sorry. Yes. Married
It's
11,
okay. It's
together
okay. We got it.
15. We got married back in 2008. No, we met in 2008. This is going smashingly.
It's
we
totally
got-
fine. Somebody asked
She's
me
like-
the other day how long I've been with Michael, and I said 7 years. I was like, wait, no, 8. And
I know.
really, we've been together for 9 years. So
Yeah,
I just,
see.
but I was too embarrassed to even correct myself. So I just went with it. And now they think that we've been married or that we've been together for only 8 years. It
I don't
happens.
so
know. I
sad.
feel like the longer we go, the more I miss the dates. And then when we get up to like the 25 to 30, then I'm going to be like, it's 30, it's 31. You know what I mean? I feel like once you really get up there, then you really start counting. But I'm like in
I
that
doubt
middle,
it. I'm not going to
early.
be.
I don't know.
If I've lost track this far, there's no hope for me at 20
You're
years,
probably
30
right.
years.
I'm probably the same. You're probably right. Okay, so we were married in 2012. The same month, actually, it became legal to get gay married in New York, which is where I live. I live in New York City. And we had already had talks about kids. Like, this is kind of what you do when you're queer. Like, you start thinking, when you realize you're queer, you start thinking, okay, well, can I swear?
Oh, you can swear all you want.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, shit. I know I'm queer, so now I have to figure out how am I going to do this? How am I going to have this baby? Like, you start thinking about that way early, right? When you realize, all right, well, I'm going to need some help here. Anyway, so we started talking about baby making really early on, and the story was always basically what we agreed on was I would be the one to carry because I'm younger. She's 7 years older than me, and I met her when I was 30. So, we always thought, okay, I'll be the one to carry. We can't afford reciprocal IVF, so we're most likely going to use my eggs. And we weren't sure about a anonymous sperm donor at a bank or if we wanted to use a known donor. That was kind of an up in the air. Then we got married. My career, I used to be in musical theater, so I used to travel a lot. I used to tour. So my career was kind of going and going and going. So after we got married, all of a sudden my wife, when we were like at a bar having beers like any self-respecting lesbians do, she turned to me and she was like, you know what, I think I want to carry. And I was like, excuse me,
Oh.
excuse me, no, that's not the plan. The plan is I'm carrying. This like, she threw me for a whole crazy loop. I was not expecting it, and that's something that can happen in our families, right? So
Right.
Yeah.
then we had to really go back to the drawing board because I really, really, really wanted to experience pregnancy. I really also wanted to have a child that had a genetic tie to me,
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
which sounds selfish. And some folks don't care about the genetic tie. At that moment in time, like in that place where I was in, it really mattered to me for some reason. Now I realize how little it matters at all because I
Yeah.
have 2 kids, but then I felt like it meant the world to me. So,
Yeah.
okay, fine. If you're going to carry, then we're having 2, right? And that was never really the plan. We were going to like at least just do 1, right? But now we're having 2 off the, like from
Oh
the
my
get go,
God.
we're having 2
Wow.
for sure.
Wait, I have a question. Did you always want to have kids when you
Mhm.
were, even when you started your relationship with Anne, you're like, yeah, this was from the get go, you're like, yes, we're having kids.
Yes, I did. I always knew I wanted to experience pregnancy. I always knew I wanted to have a child of my own. And even when I realized I was queer, I knew there were ways to make it happen. You know, I had friends
Right.
who had done it,
Okay.
so I had some representation of it in my life. So it was never an out option for me. My wife, on the other hand, didn't think it was an option for her. When I first met her, she was like, no, I don't think that's really in the cards for me because I'm a lesbian,
okay.
right? And then as we talked it through, we realized, oh, this is something we can do. And we had friends who were literally doing it in real time, like when we were trying to figure it out. So
Can you also just do a little 30-second elevator pitch on reciprocal IVF and what that
yeah.
term means? Because I'm not sure we've like,
Oh,
you know,
right.
it's something that maybe
I'm not sure if
people
we've
already
addressed it on the
know, but I'm not
podcast
sure
yet.
if we've like specifically
Mhm.
talked about it. Because it's unique to lesbian couples, correct?
It is.
Yeah,
To,
yeah,
to
so-
2 bodies that contain uteri.
Mhm.
Correct.
Uteri.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically you take the eggs from one person, one uterus, and then you transfer them into the uterus of the other person. So
After they're fertilized,
so you make an
and
embryo,
you
right?
make
So
the
you
embryos,
do,
and
yeah. So you basically
Yes.
do IVF like y'all do for surrogacy, right? You
Correct.
get the
Yeah,
eggs,
yeah.
you fertilize them, but instead of putting them, it's kind of the same as surrogacy in a way, but it's not. We're not surrogates, right?
One
It's
of you
kind
is
of
an
the
egg
same.
donor.
Yeah.
One of you ends up being the gestational carrier,
Right.
essentially.
And that's always an issue with folks who do our IVF, because reciprocal IVF, because
Mhm.
like we're going in because we're 2 bodies with uteruses, but we want to create our baby together. But they treat us, some of these clinics, because all the forms and all the things are not really inclusive of LGBTQ folks.
Yeah.
The forms we have to fill out, and the folks there treat us as if we are going through a surrogacy. And so you have to go through the therapy. You know, there's the therapy,
Like a psych eval.
things like that.
Ah,
So I've talked to a lot of. I
What?
didn't do reciprocal IVF, but I've talked to a lot of couples who felt really like bent out of shape over the way it was handled at clinics. There still needs to be a lot of work
Yeah.
done in these spaces to be truly inclusive of
That's
our
super
community.
bizarre to think about.
Because like I just interviewed a couple that the woman whose the eggs were going into was going into had to sign a form saying she was a surrogate, and she was like, I'm not signing that. I'm not a surrogate. This is my baby.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just like little nuanced things that really can start to piss you off, you know.
A future mom, somebody who's
Mhm.
going to be carrying her baby, and now she's having to sign a form to like claim herself as a surrogate, which would be
Right.
like saying, this isn't my child, I'm just carrying it,
Right.
which is kind of messed up if you think about
Not
it.
the case. Yeah.
Same thing when we were getting married. Well, similar thing, or similar feeling when we were looking at ordering our wedding invites.
Oh.
Do you remember?
Oh,
We were looking up on the websites, and this was in 2018, so it was a few years after marriage equality was passed nationally.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, there's still a lot of catching up to do. And of course, we're still there catching up. So when we're looking at these wedding invites, there was only a spot for like the bride
and groom.
bride's name, groom's name. And that's like the form that you have to fill out in order to order your wedding invites.
Yeah.
And there was no way around it. And I remember tweeting about it. I got so upset. I just blasted them online, and I'm like, why is it like this? This is ridiculous. And I got a response from the company. Should I say the company? Am I allowed
Sure.
to?
I mean, I don't think
It actually
They
turned into a good
responded
thing.
well.
it turned into a good
Yeah.
thing.
They responded well. So it's
That's the
Shutterfly.
beauty of having a platform. There you go, right there.
It was super interesting. Yeah.
It was, because I was a dick at first, to be honest. I was not coy about it. I was very mad. I made a YouTube video. It blew the whole thing up.
I write 95% of Matthew's emails when they involve anything that
reference.
is somewhat, you know.
You soften it a bit.
I soften it a
Michael.
bit.
Softens it
Yeah,
a bit.
if
I
it's
get it.
if it's conflict, I you know.
I don't know how to address
doesn't.
conflict in a nice way.
Yeah.
I'm
get
just
that.
more like, you bitch.
Yeah. I'm the softener of the emails in my relationship. I feel you,
Yeah.
Michael.
Yes. So I called Shutterfly out, and I was like, why is it like this? And they're like, complicated computer things. We don't know. It's a coding issue. I'm like, y'all got to change that right now.
Yeah.
Also, Shutterfly is a Canadian company, and Canada legalized gay marriage in 2013.
Right.
And this
Oh,
is
2000
wasn't it? Or 2003?
It
Wait.
was 2003
There's
and
a 3 in
2005, I
there.
believe.
Oh, maybe it's
One of
earlier.
those. But
somebody can
regardless.
fact check me. Maybe I can fact check myself.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's like it's been legal for a long time in Canada. How has this not been brought up
crazy.
before?
But they changed it.
But they changed
did.
it like immediately. Like
It was pretty
within
quick.
months.
Good
It was
job.
amazing.
Good
People
job,
were
fellas.
retweeting. There was all
Yeah.
that stuff going on. People were
Oh.
angry.
But wait, there's more.
Uh-oh.
So then we got frustrated and we were like, well, we're going to go over to Minted because they hadn't changed it yet.
Mhm.
And in Minted, it was like person 1, person 2 or something. It was like,
Yeah, it was more
Whatever.
inclusive.
But wait, we get the box of save the dates in the mail. Save the dates are us, two obvious
men,
males.
a picture of two men on the front,
And
right?
we
It says
pop
Michael
it-
and Matt.
We pop it open and it says a gift for the bride.
Oh my God.
And it's like
Oh my
$50 to like
A
for like the invites or whatever.
like
To
And
like
we were like-
David's bridal.
coupon.
Yeah. And if you know Minted, there's always like a card that's like literally signed by somebody who like packaged your box. And it's like
Packages the
packaged by
reviews.
Laura, and she like signs her name or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh come on, like really?
Did you not? Did you not look at the picture? I mean, it's
So anyways.
really.
Anyways.
So
Yeah,
many
so
things.
I tweeted that, and then Minted contacted me, and then they're like, "We're doing an internal review, and we're fixing this, and we're not going to have oversights over misgendering people."
Good job. Look at what you did. Look at
Same-sex
that.
marriage became legal in Ontario in 2003.
Wow.
And it was
yeah,
already
so-
legalized in 8 of the 10 provinces and 1 of 3 territories. On July 20th, 2005, Canada became the first country outside Europe and the 4th country in the world to legalize same-sex marriage. So you're right, 2005. And this is 2017.
All right,
like
Canada.
the year
You can't just talk
beforehand.
the talk. You got to walk the walk.
So it was like 12
An
years
audio.
where nobody
Mhm.
brought
Yeah.
this up, I guess, in a significant way.
Anyway, that was a tangent.
It was a
Well,
tangent.
But these are the things. These are the things, and these are why, like, your platform's so important. I say this way too much, but it's true. Like, this is why podcasts like ours are so important, right? Because there's no knowledge out there.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So
And change doesn't happen without discussion, discourse, conversation.
representation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
visibility, right? So yeah. So
Reciprocal IVF. You're treated as a surrogate.
So we knew we couldn't do reciprocal IVF, but in the end, like, just to give you a little precursor, we ended up spending so much more money to make our family anyway, because of all the issues that came up. But and IVF, it's basically reciprocal IVF is just doing an IVF cycle, except you switch bodies in the middle, right? So it's expensive. It starts at least $15,000, and then it goes up from there. And then the other wrench it through in our the original plan was not only now are we having 2 kids because she wants to carry 2, we have to start right now because she was 37 at the time. So that means she's going first, and
The
we're
clock is
starting
ticking.
right now. right? And
Yeah.
that was
Oh my
not,
gosh.
I was like, I have at least like 5 more years to keep continuing with my career. It was
Right.
popping. I was like living the life, but no, we had to change course. So we, go into it, basically did what our friends before us did. We found a clinic that our friend had used. I call it LGBTQ drafting. Like, you just do what your friends did before. you know,
Oh, I
we
feel that.
like a bunch of our friends our lesbian friends had used a sperm bank, anonymous sperm, and we were like, all right, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do the anonymous sperm route. So we went shopping on the cryobank website, which
Yeah.
gets into crazy town, because then it becomes like the search for Superman, because you start ruling people out because crazy weird stuff. Like, we overruled someone because he had acne as a teenager, like silly
my God.
silly stuff that, like, who doesn't have acne as a teenager? But I was
I
like,
know.
no, we can't choose this guy. Look at acne.
Yeah.
So
Right?
ridiculous. So dumb.
Meanwhile, it's like, I'm just going to ignore all of the things that I carry along with me.
Right, exactly. Like, if I was using her if it was my genetics, we
If it
got
was
like
flipped.
depression, suicidal, like alcoholism. Like, that's fine. We're cool with that. But this guy, no acne.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So whatever.
I get
But
it.
yeah,
I
you
get
get
it.
crazy. And then we toyed with the idea of using a known donor for a second. We even had a really close friend in mind. We came so close to asking him, and we decided not to in the end, because we didn't want to complicate it even more, because we knew if we did that, then you need to get a lawyer, you need to draft up all the papers, you need to make sure that you are 100% protected with this extra person in the family. And then he comes with a whole family who might want to be involved too. And like, how do we feel about that? Like, there's a lot of extra things to think through, right? When you're adding a known donor into the picture. And a lot of people do it, and it's beautiful, and it ends up wonderfully. And oh my God, I'm like jealous of the way some of these beautiful, huge families turn out. But I have also interviewed folks who it went south real bad. So
I think we struggled with that quite a bit too. And the thoughts of like wanting to so badly involve someone in the family in the process. And then at the same time, it comes with all of these big questions.
Right.
And,
right. And
trying
if
to
you
figure out if it
if you
actually
have
worked.
the capacity to figure out all those questions, and you do it, it can be beautiful. It can be so amazing. Like,
right.
Some of the like I said, like, I've spoken to so many people who have these amazing family setups. It just wasn't for us. So we found our sperm. We bought a bunch of vials, because you definitely want to buy, more than just one, because you don't know how long it's going to take. And
how much does I don't even know. How much does like a vial of sperm cost? Like, what do you?
Back then, a vial, and we chose a donor, an open donor, open ID donor. So that means when the child turns 18, they can try to contact him. There's closed donors where they're like, I want no contact. Like, I just gave my sperm. That's it. And there's open donors. So we chose an open one, but you pay more for that, of course.
Sure. Because why wouldn't they charge you for something like that?
Yeah. And back then, and this was in like 2012, vial was going for like $750.
One vial.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So how many do they recommend you buy?
It all depends. Like, I recommend now, after listening to so many stories and knowing my own personal story, I recommend starting with like 6 at least, because you can always sell them back.
I'm just thinking of
You
Harry
can?
Potter,
I didn't
and
know
he's
you
like,
could-
"Well, take the lot."
Oh, that makes sense. You can sell them back. 'Cause it's
As
not
long
like
as
you're
you-
going to a
like-
counter and being like, yes, I'll have 7, please. And then they'll hand over 7 vials. They stay in the cryo freeze chamber.
Depending. So if you like, it's so much, like, you have to pay for shipping, right? So you're like, you have to pay for shipping, and then you have to pay for storage wherever it's going to be stored, right? So you can keep it all in storage at the cryobank, but you pay for that. And then you can ship 1 vial at a time per cycle to your bank, to your clinic or wherever it's going. But you're paying for shipping and the storage for that, right? Or you could ship it all at once, but then you have to pay to store it at your clinic.
It seems like it would just make more sense for somebody to volunteer and be like, yes, I'll be a sperm donor.
I volunteer as tribute.
And then when you want it, you just fly them to the clinic.
Right.
Like, and
I
then
don't
But
know.
the
That
just
sounds
sperm,
expensive too.
but the
Yeah, but
sperm has to go through 6 months of quarantine and testing at these banks.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like a
whoa.
whole thing. Yeah, there's that.
What?
And some
Wow.
folks are really don't like that, like
That is news to me. Yeah.
which
Because
which
ours
is
was
Oh,
like,
I didn't know that.
as soon as we did our
Oh my
thing,
gosh,
they're
I'm
like,
learning
okay,
so
we can
much.
use this.
right. Well, because it's
Oh, wait.
yeah,
No, they did genetic testing
They
first.
genetically tested ours. Yeah.
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 but yeah, that's different. That's because you're doing
For our own
IVF and
use.
you did
Yeah.
like the PGA testing and stuff like that.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That was optional for us. Like once the embryos are done,
Got
but
it.
like
Right.
Okay.
they do all this. Like they need to make sure there's no STDs in the sperm, and like
Yeah.
I don't. They do all kinds of. It's probably because it's federally regulated, so they have to do all this testing before they release it to sell it. It's like a business thing. Which is why a lot of people would rather use a known donor because you don't have to do all that crazy rigmarole. Like if you know the person, then you take their sperm and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, my wife ended up getting pregnant after 5 tries. We had to switch to IVF. So IUI was paid for by our insurance miraculously, which is amazing because a lot of insurances don't cover stuff for
Whoa.
like a lot of insurances. You have to prove you've been trying for 6 months, and like, yeah, we've been trying. We're just not making any babies from our trying.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like,
So for Anne, it was, you said 5 tries?
yeah.
or
So
6 tries?
she did like 4 IUIs, and then mid-cycle, the doctor was like,
4
you know what? Let's switch this up. It's not working. We're running out of
Got it.
sperm. Let's just switch this to IVF because there's a better chance. So we did it, but we didn't realize our insurance didn't pay for IVF. So like the day we go for the retrieval where they take the eggs out, they handed us a bill first. They took us into an office and handed us like a $15,000 bill. We were like, so that went on the credit card, and then we had to take a loan out to pay for that. So like, yeah. Anyway, don't like, and that was like the easy part of our journey. But anyway, so she ended up getting pregnant, easy pregnancy, no issues, and then we had our daughter 9 months later. Wonderful, beautiful, and then it was my turn, and we wanted them to be like 2 years apart. So we started trying when Rose was like 9 months old, because I was going to get like secretly pregnant and be like, guess what? I'm pregnant.
Incognito
guys.
about it.
Yeah, I was going to be like super stealth and like, you know, you didn't even know I was trying, but look at us.
Just like hair flip,
Yeah.
turn and pregnant. Yes.
I had a plan, honey. We had the sperm from the same donor. We were going to use the same donor. It was going to be beautiful. We actually started with IVF because actually we only had 2 vials of his sperm left. That's what it was.
Okay.
Right. So we started with IVF because my doctor was like, let's just get you pregnant. Let's just do it.
Right.
And I was like, yeah. And
He's like, don't bother with the IUI at this point. Like you have 2 vials left. In order to keep the same donor, let's just do IVF and make sure that it's good.
Oh, wow.
We went in for it. We took out another loan against my wife's retirement. Thank God we were privileged enough for my wife to have a retirement to even take out of. You know what I mean? Like there's so many folks who don't even have that. We were able to do that. We went for the IVF and it didn't work. We were like
at all, like 0 embryos.
Are you
serious?
I got, so you know how it all plays out. So from the retrieval, the first time I did this, I think I got 17. I was 35. So I'm a geriatric. It's considered a geriatric pregnancy. That's literally what they call it.
Oh my God.
Yes. Because if past 35, you're like, you have dusty eggs, like it's over for you. So that started with 17, and then that number dwindled down to 10, and then
eggs,
every
10
day
mature.
10, and then it was like 10 that we can actually fertilize, right?
Yeah.
Then every day it was like, oh, we got 8 now. Oh, we have 7. Oh, we have 5, and then I ended up with 3. 3
fully developed embryos
that all looked good. I'm trying to, because there are so many different cycles now that I'm trying to think through. That one they all looked good for. We put in 2 at first, and we were like, oh my God, I don't want twins. We were so scared for twins because we were just sure it was going to work. Neither one of them took. Such a waste.
Oh my
then
God.
he put the second one in, didn't work. So then we
and for context, it's not just putting them in.
Right.
It's like a whole
you have
thing.
Injections, hormones,
right?
paying for all of those medications out of
Well,
pocket. Additionally,
Each transfer costs like a significant amount of money,
I
does it
think
not?
now it's like at least in our experience, I think every time they go to transfer, it's $5,000 or $6,000 more
Yeah.
additional from like the
Right.
already large down payment that you put down on the whole process. So it's kind of like you pay for the whole process, and then it's like if you have additional transfers, those are going to be $5,000 or $6,000 a piece,
Casual.
plus the additional medications and all that.
Right. So I think our initial charge was $12,000 at the clinic just to start us off.
And this was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay.
No, this was like 7 years ago. 7
years ago.
7 or
Got
8
it.
years ago.
Right. It's like not. It's like significant. It's not.
Right.
It's
Right.
not just
And
oops, it didn't work. It's
Yeah.
like
right. And we've
Ugh.
already spent thousands of dollars on sperm and storage, right?
yeah.
Then so then they put the other one in, it doesn't take. So then we're out of sperm and we're out of money. What are we gonna do? So we went to the sperm bank. The bank had retired him. That's what they call it when enough families have been made by a certain donor, they retire them. However, there was a clause that if a family who already has a child by a donor wants to ask him to come out of retirement, the clinic will ask for you, and he will come back in, give you some vials, and you just have to agree to buy all the vials.
It's just this very Tom Brady situation.
Yeah.
It's like we retired, but then like somebody
Yeah,
was like,
right.
I have a lot of money for you, and then he like came back, and then he like quit
That's
again, and it's just
basically
like
what
yeah,
happened.
yeah.
So they
We need
reached
the
out.
Tom Brady to come back into the sperm bank to give
Yeah.
another round.
all right, Tom Brady, you're coming back. We need another
This is-
ring.
Coming out of
We
retirement.
were like, "Come on, Tom. Come here, Tom."
That might have been the straightest reference I've ever made in my life.
I wasn't even sure if I knew who Tom Brady was, and then I
Oh
was
my
like,
God,
oh,
it's
that
a whole
guy.
thing.
Football
It's
guy.
a whole thing. He said yes. We were like, now we know he really is a good guy. We picked the right guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Oh,
so
yeah.
funny, the things you think. We've never spoken to this man. But then you have to wait because they have to quarantine the sperm. So then it was we're in the process, and you know what it's like when you're in the process and
Yeah.
having to stop. So now we have to
Oh my
wait
God,
6
yeah.
months for the sperm. We have to see how much he gets, and then we have to like buy it up, which we didn't. We didn't buy it all up, but the clinic didn't seem to pay attention. We bought a bunch, but we didn't buy it all. Anyway, so waited all that time and then started again. And our same doctor was like, you know what? IVF didn't work. Let's just go to IUI with like
wow.
fertility drugs. So at this point, I've been on fertility drug. Like I'm just like a fertility drug body. This is what I am, right? It's
What
like
does
a
that
mess.
do to your like? I mean, does it mess with just like all of your emotions and
What
just like
made me crazy?
right?
My wife like doesn't feel pain like the rest of us do. My wife is like just a very dry human and like, no, it is what it is. I'm right. You know what I mean? And like,
Right.
she's
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
Queens, so I always do this accent, but she doesn't talk like that at all. But so like, she didn't feel a thing when she was on her fertility drugs. Me, I was like, I don't know,
Oh.
I'm crying. I'm a mess. It was a mess. I was bloated. It was bad.
Do you remember how many days you would have to take the medication injections up until the transfer?
So it's basically like you start, God, it's been a while, but you start taking them on like day 2 of your cycle. And then you take them all the way up to your follicles. That's what they call the eggs, are like ripe and ready
Yeah.
Wow.
for the taking, right? And these
Yeah.
drugs help to pump up the eggs. So you get extra eggs. That's the whole
Yeah,
point
yeah.
of it. So your ovaries are like overstimulated and like full of as many eggs as they can get, basically.
Wow.
And you're giving yourself shots like throughout all the way up until ovulation. So like 15 days.
And it's everyday injections.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then there's pills. Like there's all kinds of stuff. And then there's the thing you have to insert. Like it's a lot. It's a lot. You don't need to know everything. But like
I'm like, I'm curious. No, tell me.
you have to like there's these like suppository things that help with progesterone. It's a thing. It's a thing.
Like
It's a whole
nursing
thing.
background, yes. Suppository queen here, ready
Right.
to go.
Not
Those
in
are
the
my
butt.
favorite things to do in nursing. One of my favorite things because it's so
Suppositories?
easy. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
you just have someone bend over, you take
Oh.
the pill, put a little lube on your finger, and you're like, boom, boom,
Oh.
and then it just goes
These
up.
ones
disappears.
didn't go in the butt though. They go in
Yeah.
the other.
Oh,
for the, because it's the lady part.
I've never done
I
one of
should
those.
say
So let me clarify.
the vagina.
Sorry.
Matthew's like, yeah, those are my favorite.
I'm thinking suppository. You just put it right up the anus. Like,
No, these don't go in the
No.
butt.
Yeah, different
Okay.
one, different one, Matthew.
different holes.
We're trying to get to the uterus.
Sorry.
But
That might have been a malpractice
That was just
situation.
no, that was
Wow.
everything.
Matthew's
was
like, yeah, I put
everything.
the suppository in. They're like, where, yeah, which part?
My butt's a little yeasty. I don't know. Oh my God. We're going
Jesus.
south. Okay. All right.
Wow.
So then we switched to IUI. We have a bunch of vials, so many vials. We've spent so much money on sperm. I can't even tell you. And we're doing IUI after IUI after IUI after I did probably at least 20 IUIs. At least.
Oh my God. Do you wait until like a certain point in the cycle every month to do this IUI? So it's kind of like
You have
did this
to.
for over a year.
It took me almost 3 years. So it was 3 years of trying to get pregnant while I had like a toddler at home and like, yeah, to try to end this long ass story that nobody needs to hear the whole thing of. Finally, I always felt like I talk about this because I always say you need to trust your gut, especially in this process when you're trying to create a family. Trust your gut. I always felt slightly off about our fertility doctor. I never felt like he was right for me. He was great for Anne. Wasn't right for me. It wasn't a good fit. So finally, after like, we did another IVF cycle that failed. Finally, after all of that, like 2.5 years worth, 3 years worth of all of this trying, I said, you know what? Because the doctor kept saying, I look at this like a scientist. And if something's not working, you switch the formula. And he kept saying, so he was like, maybe we need to use an egg donor for you. And I was like, that's not the plan. I know I can carry a child. I know. I don't know why it's not. And they had no explanation for it. It was unexplained infertility. They couldn't figure it out because everything was working fine. So, and he kept saying, we changed the formula. How about an egg donor? And I was like, no. And then finally I was home one night and I was like, switch the formula. I'm getting a new doctor. That's you're the one that's going. You're going.
Yeah.
Duh.
You see this equation? Well,
Duh.
You're going to be the one that changes.
Yeah. So we took a break. I got this book called It Starts with the Egg, and it's all about the health of your eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And I started taking like all these supplements that were listed in this book. I got rid of like toxins in my house. Like I went a little crazy. Started acupuncture, fertility acupuncture. I just took things into my own hands. I stopped listening to other people and I just started like figuring it out on my own. I found a different clinic, a much bigger clinic, so it didn't feel so personal because the other one was really small. And like every time I went in there, I felt like such a failure and they would look at me so sad. So I found this place that was like a factory and that felt so much more refreshing for me personally.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right. And some people hate that feeling.
Yeah,
but I was like, oh
definitely.
my God, nobody knows who I am. This is amazing. Switched it up.
Yeah.
Went to this new place where the nurses do the insemination. Like I only met the doctor one time. And when I went to her, my file, she printed out my file and it was like a stack of papers. I'm like, you can't see it if you're not watching the video, but it's bigger than my head. And she was like, I have never seen a file like this. This is crazy. And I was like, I know. And so she was like, all right, we're going to get you pregnant. Went in for one IUI. That one didn't work. And then I got pregnant on the second one.
Holy moly.
Just an IUI.
Right. Mm-hmm.
After all of that.
What do you think was there something that they did differently or like that something that you noticed?
I honestly think like I did start taking these supplements. I don't know if they had anything to do with it. I did start doing acupuncture. I took a break. I took like a mental health break where I was doing all these things to kind of help prepare my body better and possibly get my eggs into better health, even if that, I don't know. I just followed what the book said. And I felt this like wave of relief at this new place. And I think that had something to do with it. Like
I mean, there's
felt,
a lot to say about stress hormones and how that can affect like, getting pregnant. And that's scientific. There's, it's not magic juju. It's real stuff. So,
So like it It was a real crazy, harrowing journey. But in the end, I trusted my gut, and then I ended up getting pregnant.
What did that feel like after only having to do it twice at this like new place?
Surreal. Like I didn't believe it.
Right?
Like I didn't really believe it. It didn't really set in. I don't think it ever really set in until he was like in my arms, and then I was
Yeah.
like, oh wow, we did this. You know, I didn't cry. I didn't like make a big to do about it. My wife was making a big to do about it when we found out, and I was like, oh, okay. I think I was in shock. Like, no way. After all of this, it's finally, you know what I mean? Like, I guess I was just kind of in like survival mode. Just go, go, go. I don't know. It was weird. It was surreal.
Miscarriage is something that is like relatively prevalent, even though, you know, sometimes we don't talk about it as much. I think it's being talked about a lot more, but I think it's like a quarter, maybe.
Oh,
if
yeah.
that's somewhat
so many.
right.
Third.
A quarter to a third of all pregnancies, right? So did that ever cross your mind too? Because that is like in the future, like even if or after we have a successful embryo transfer, I'm still holding my breath. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We didn't tell anyone until, you know, we passed the first trimester. We kept it a secret just in case.
Yeah.
And I do think like, I remember thinking, if I miscarry, I don't know if I'm going to make it through. Like after all of this, we're so lucky neither one of us had a miscarriage for either pregnancy. So we're lucky.
It takes so much strength and determination to carry through
3
a pregnancy.
years.
Yeah, after all of that.
IUIs.
All of that investment.
It was,
and
then
thousands.
But then, like, and I say this all the time too, like once the baby's here, you don't, it's like this distant memory now.
Yeah.
I know I was in it. I know I was going through it, but I can't get myself back to that state. Do you know? Like, it's like, there's a disconnect because I had
I'm
this
still trying to
kid.
comprehend that feeling or
Right.
that thought because we're not there yet. We don't have, I don't know what it's like to hold my own baby. And so
Right.
to think about like, you know, because I've heard that so many times from parents of, once you hold your baby, nothing else matters.
Yeah.
I'm like, huh.
It's
You don't have time.
Like, I don't know yet.
You don't have time to think about anything else.
It is that. It's that magic of like, oh my God, I love you so much. And it's also, you have no time. Like, you don't have time for
brain
you
space
anymore.
Yeah.
And this was my second kid too. So I'm adding a kid to the mix. I had no time to contemplate shit at that point. Like, it is just, now you're like mom central, and that's all you do. And you can't think about stuff.
I think I mean, this is not to equate these two experiences, but I sometimes feel that sort of similar thought process of like before you were out, like and I think this is not the case for a lot of people or maybe some people, but it's hard for me to put myself back in the mindset of when I was in the closet or like when I was still like quote unquote straight. Yeah. And like what that felt like and like kind of what that experience was. And I think it was like after coming out, it was like this whole new world.
Vast life change that it's difficult
and
to
now
comprehend what life was like before.
And it's like so normal now. And we have so many gay friends and like we're in this very like queer friendly city. And I don't know, we're like talking about it all the time, you know, and
oh my God. And then we go out of town sometimes and then we're like,
and then we're hit with it.
Oh,
like,
right. Yeah. You forget.
That's what the world looks like. Oh, I'm going back to the city.
Culture.
I don't think that's a bad analogy. That's
it's just you're in this world and you kind of forget about.
Yep.
But I don't know. I think it's completely different with kids, but
I mean, nothing
just something in my brain.
For kids, they're assholes. I'm just gonna lay it on the line for you. I love them to death, but they're such assholes.
But it'll be my asshole.
Yeah, but they're your assholes, so nobody's allowed to say anything bad about them to you. But you can think whatever you want in any given moment about your little asshole. But and I know you guys want to get into the podcast, so I will just segue for you.
Thank you. Oh wow! Oh my gosh!
I love that. Yes.
Was that some
magic?
Reading my brain.
These two stories go together. So
let's do it.
Struggle with getting pregnant is the whole reason this podcast came about.
Right.
Because when I was going through it and when I was really having a hard time, I started, you feel lonely. I was I wanted to hear from other folks who were going through like a very similar experience to my own.
Right.
So I wanted
Holy
to
crap!
hear.
I just had an epiphany.
To know you're not alone.
It's like
Right.
literally why we started our podcast.
Exactly. No.
Matthew's had that. I've had that. I've known that for a long time.
I'm like, oh
Right,
my god,
but-
that sounds like me.
No,
Yeah.
it's the same, right? Because there's nothing out there. So, right, I'm doing this 7 years ago and there
Yeah.
was nothing. And I had just discovered podcasts 7 years ago.
Sure.
And I was like, well, surely somebody has done a podcast about lesbians creating babies. There's a podcast about everything, right? Nope. There wasn't. And I found a
just
bunch
so
of fertility
amazing.
podcasts, but they were all straight, they were all heteronormative, and so many times
Really?
they would bring in like the perspective of the husband and how upset he is at even having to go to a fertility clinic to get help. And like, I don't give a how upset your goddamn husband was. I don't care. Like, we're going through this
Yeah.
because we know we're already going to need help. So it's a totally different experience than you. And I don't want to hear about your husband whining. I'm sorry. I don't care. Right. So like,
Mhm.
and then they would like inevitably turn it to like Jesus Christ and their faith in Jesus. It was always turning to Jesus and
Using
you know,
science, but trusting
like-
in Jesus.
right. Like
fine.
if
Cool.
you put your faith in Jesus, like really hold on to your faith, it will happen for you. I don't want to hear that either. No shade.
On a
no
fertility
shade.
podcast.
Yes, and no shade to the folks that really resonates with, but that does not resonate with me. So I was like, stop talking about Jesus, stop talking about your husbands. This is not, and I would find like one lesbian story in the midst of 20 episodes, you know?
That's just
Yeah.
interesting.
And then it was always told from like the straight point of view. And I was like, why is there nothing out there for
Just
us?
isn't
Like this
applicable.
is
It's not applicable.
crazy.
Yeah.
There were no books. There were no, you know, like you had to like search through straight books to find the one queer story in them, you know? So I was like, well,
Wow.
somebody needs to create this podcast. And I kept thinking that while I was going through the infertility. After I got pregnant, when I was still pregnant, the thought just kept like, well, somebody needs to create that. Somebody needs to create that show. And then finally, I was like 7 months pregnant or 6 months pregnant. And I thought, oh shit, I have to create it. Oops. Like, okay, well, shit. Well,
It
how am I going
has
to do
to be
that? I
me.
don't know how to do this. I don't know how to make a podcast. I barely even know what a
Mhm.
podcast is. So I went to like the one friend I knew who was also an actress. And by friend, I mean like acquaintance. Like I would see her
Mhm.
once a year at the Pride
Oh, wow.
family picnic. She's a gay mom and she was like in the group of friends, but not like one of the close ones in the group.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'd see her
Got
like
it.
at Pride every year with her kids. And I knew she was an actress. I knew she had some experience with podcasts. She worked at Spotify. So at the
Oh,
Pride
cool.
family picnic one
Convenient.
year, I was like, hey, I have this idea for a podcast. You want to do it with me? And all of our lesbian mom friends were there when I asked. And she was like, that sounds like a good idea. And all the lesbian mom friends were like, hell yes, that's a great idea. And we'll be on it. So we were like, all right,
Oh,
we already
cool.
have our first season,
Like literally,
which is
wow.
all our friends, right? And so we started the show. But the show was, we originally called it If These Ovaries Could Talk.
Mhm.
Which is a play. I know y'all don't know the movie because I'm older than you, but there was this like made for TV movie in the 90s called If These Walls Could Talk. We were like, oh my God, if these ovaries could talk. It's like a play on gay things, right? So we did that because we were gay moms, cisgendered lesbian moms, and all of our friends who we knew we were coming on for the first season, we were like, all right, well, we're telling the lesbian stories, right?
Totally.
So we
Yeah.
started the show. I just thought we were just going to have a season and be done with it, like a cute little passion project. But it took off because I wasn't the only one feeling alone. People started writing in. People started saying, oh my God, I want to tell my story. And then we started hearing from not just lesbians, trans folks, gay guys like yourselves,
Yeah.
like non-binary. Like we just started hearing from all the community. And then we started telling all the stories, right? Season after season goes by, and we were 9 seasons in. And then my co-host Robin decided she had to step away because we never really made money doing it. Like,
I think that's maybe
yeah.
a misconception of podcasts, right? People are like, oh, everybody
Yeah.
has a podcast. It must be like so lucrative. It's like, no,
Yeah.
they're like kind of just passion projects.
Yeah. And if
You
you're
know, and
lucky, If you're lucky,
If
and
you're
I'm still
lucky.
hoping it's gonna get there, right?
Yeah.
But it's still,
Yeah.
I'm still working my butt off for very little,
Yep.
Right.
And
I
she
feel that.
had to like do what was right for her family and step down. So she did.
Mm.
She had to go. It was very hard. It was very terrible. It was a hard breakup,
That
Mhm.
sucks.
and then like I saw the opportunity in that because I had been hearing from like mainly like my trans friends and like the trans community that I would interview that the name of the show was off-putting.
Mm.
Because especially
Yeah.
like with the trans experience, you don't want to talk about body parts. You don't want to talk about your
Correct.
ovaries if you have them or if you don't have them. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we like to take it off the body. And so it was very off-putting for a huge portion of our community. So I rebranded and I made it the Queer Family Podcast to include and encompass everyone. And it's been my mission since then. Now we're in season 13 to like make sure I'm doing my best to represent
Yeah.
everyone in the L's, the G's, the B's, the T's, the Q's, the I,
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
A's.
Yeah.
I see it as a glow up. It's a glow up.
You didn't know that it was going to turn into that. I
Had
mean,
no
No,
idea.
yeah, I love that.
you-
That's like the
you know, you-
evolution of it.
you were taking your experience and
Mhm.
like you're like, I just want to. I know how to tell my experience. It wasn't
Yeah.
like intended to be
No.
exclusional. I think it was like I can talk about what I know about, and I don't, So
But then it grew. It
but
grew.
yeah,
It
it
Yeah.
grew.
grew. It
Became
grew.
more
No.
inclusive, and then it was like, now it's
Yeah.
time for a rebrand. I love
Yeah,
that.
and it happened, and like we were two white cisgender lesbians putting on a show,
Right.
and now it's like, and then I brought in a different guest co-host for one season. It didn't end up working out, but just to bring different perspective to the hosting table. And
Mm-hmm.
E was black.
Sometimes I
and
think about doing that with
non-binary.
ours too.
Yeah, well, you gotta be careful. Uh oh.
Oh,
He
Snacks.
says, looking at the person who conceptualized this podcast.
If these
Don't get
walls
in that
could
argument.
talk.
Don't get in that argument. I went down that road a couple times.
We're about to have
Oh
a breakup here at the
Oh my
Who's Your
God,
Daddy
don't do it.
podcast in season 1.
I have been through 2 host breakups. I do not recommend it. It is very hard.
Especially if
And
you're married to them
Right.
and
Don't
trying
do
to
it.
have a baby.
Trying
Actively.
to have a
Yeah.
baby with them.
Let's just get through that. No.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah, and then cut to like 7 months ago when I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of stuff out there that people don't know.
Yep.
And the only long form that I could see myself doing and like using as some sort of educational medium is podcasting. And so then I'm like, who's doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Just Jaimie. Like still,
I
it's
know.
like, it was you.
And because you bring a totally different perspective to this situation,
Yeah.
right? You're 2 gay guys. You know what I mean? So you bring that perspective to the hosting table. And I think that there's room for all of us.
Oh, for sure.
To just because there's so many stories, and as you have probably learned, no 2 stories when it comes to queer family building are alike. Not a single one. Even when
It's
you
so
go
true.
the same exact path,
It's
they're
so
so
true.
different.
I mean, here's a call out. Literally, if you're listening to this podcast episode, like,
And you haven't been on it yet.
send an email to Jaimie. Send an email to us. Like, send the same email
Yeah.
to both of us. And
Yeah.
we want to hear your stories because honestly, like, that is representation, hearing a bit of your story and your path to parenthood or whatever it is that you're struggling with or trying to figure out
Mhm.
in the LGBTQ plus world. It's like, yeah, we want to hear that.
When we've learned
Yeah.
so much and we're not even halfway through our season,
Right.
just talking to people, interviewing people, hearing their stories, and it's informing us
Yeah.
as we're going through like the beginning of our journey. It's been like incredibly helpful for us and educational for us, and just to like sit here, talk about it, hear complications, like things that you could mentally prepare for, costs you need to mentally prepare for, emotions you need to mentally prepare for, all the things. So
Yeah.
You started this podcast, you've done the whole rebrand. Here you are with your family, but I think there was something else that nobody knows about that you wanted to talk about today.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I can talk about this because my family knows, my kids know. Like, that's the main thing, like, when it comes
Right.
to this stuff. So, it has to do with our donor. So, as I mentioned, It's crazy. Our families, like, we really, like, there's so many things. Oh my God. So I mentioned that we got an open ID donor, meaning he is open to being contacted when the kids turn 18. And I want to say, I never really thought much about the donor at all. I was not ever, I grew up with my dad.
Except his acne.
Right, except his acne. Like, I thought about, like, what I wanted them to have, right? But, like, in regards to, like, the relationship or the thoughts that the kids would have about the donor, I didn't give it enough thought, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I've learned a lot since then. And I think it's because of my own upbringing. I grew up with my dad. I just was never, like, particularly close with my dad. Like, my mom was everything to me. And so I guess in my brain, I was like, they're gonna have two moms. Like, psh, they'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like, never thinking that my kids would miss the fact that they didn't have a dad. That was naive on my part and stupid, right? Because you never know what human is going to come out of you, right? And you never know. Who knows? And I've learned from a lot of donor conceived people, no matter how open you are and honest about the donor, and we are in queer families, we are so open and honest and upfront. And my children have known their origin story since they were born. We've been telling it to them forever, right? So there's no, like, mystery there, and they're not going to find out later in life something that they didn't know. That's not an issue, right? However, you can't control how your child is going to deal with that. Most kids' studies show that as long as you're open and honest and upfront, most kids are, like, well adjusted about it as they grow, but you can't guarantee that, right? So there's that. I want to put that out there, and I do understand that. And I was naive and I didn't think too much about that. That's not where I'm going to go here. Here's what happened recently. So you can go on the donor sibling registry, which is where you can go and say, we have a child with donor, blah, 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 blah. And then it'll show you whoever has also registered at this site will show you all the other families that have a child or children with that particular donor. So we did that. We found 2 other families. And a lot of folks, what I learned on the show is a lot of folks will make, like, a private Facebook group for the donors if you want to get to know them, for the donor families, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Which a lot of people did. At first we were like, no way. And then I talked to so many people on the show and I thought, okay, actually it could be great, you know, for them to have these donor siblings and know that this part of their genetics is there in the world. And if there's something we can know, why wouldn't we want to know it, right? So we made this private Facebook group. There's only 2 other families in it. I haven't found any other families. Then recently I got a DM from one of the moms. And she was like, hey, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this. My kids know about it. That's why I feel okay sharing it. But I'm not sure how to tell you this, but I actually know our donor personally. I think she said he was actually a friend of ours. So he's kind of a known donor to us. We just knew that he was also a sperm donor and we knew his number or something like that.
So they've known him forever?
I guess. Like, ever since
it wasn't
the kids...
like my daughter turned 18 and now
No, because our kids are all like our kids are the same age.
Young.
And my kids are 9 and 5. So, and then I sat with it for a little bit and I was like, oh my God. Okay. Oh my God. And then I was like, I have this, does this woman know I have a podcast? Is like, how much does she know about me? Like, what's So I just wrote back.
Mind starts spinning.
Yeah. My mind just started going all over the
3
place.
3 a.m. waking up.
Yeah. So I just wrote back like, hey, just wondering, do you know I have a podcast about queer families? And she was like, I do. I'm a listener. I love it. Aww. And that's why I felt like I could reach out. And she's very sweet. I'm not saying anything bad about this mother at all. Like, very sweet.
Totally.
Yeah.
Very lovely. But I took forever to respond every time. So this is an explanation to you, Samantha. Like, because I was sitting with it like, I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then I get another DM and she sent me a picture of him with her kid. And he's an adult, like him now. And I've only seen baby pictures.
You only get to see
the baby pictures of the donor. You don't get to see real human pictures of them.
Yeah. That is so bizarre.
So I was like, oh my God. Now I know what he looks like. Now I have his picture. And she was like, and he said he's open to like being contacted if you want his email. No problem. And I'm like, I was not, I don't know what to do. This was not, I'm not ready for this.
I have a question. If you're doing like an open egg donation, and you're not going to meet the person, you're not going to know the person, like whatever. We always have to, our contract states like we have to go through the agency
in order to
Da, da, da,
contact
da,
them in
da.
the future.
Right.
Is that something that you also
Similar
had
with the
to
sperm
do?
bank.
Like, is there
Well,
not to?
if
I don't want to
we-
get anybody in trouble, but like, is there
No.
something written that you have to go through the agency?
Yes. If we were trying to make the contact, yes.
If you were trying to, okay.
But this woman just told me he's fine with me giving his email address if you want it. I sat down with Anne. We had a discussion about it, and she was like, "Oh no, I don't want to know this person." And I was like, "I think we should probably."
Oh, really?
So then we agreed we'll talk to our daughter. Our 5-year-old is still a little young for like this extra piece of it, but like our daughter
totally.
could comprehend it,
sense.
right? I said, you know what? Because I also am firmly of the mind that if I get any new information about this part of their DNA, it is my responsibility to tell them. If I know anything, I can't hold it in, because then it's a secret later in life when they find out. And oh my God, why didn't you tell me? Right?
Yeah,
that I
would
don't
be
want.
bad.
Right.
So I was like, we have to be really open and upfront and present this in an age appropriate way, right? Talk to her about it. We told her, we got a adult picture and you can see it if you want, and she was like, yeah. So I showed it to her. She was like, oh my God. And she was like, and then I said, like, and he said we can write him an email if we want to. Is that something you'd want to do? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, well, do you have any questions you'd want to know? And she asked me some like ridiculous question that I was like, maybe we should like think like a little more deeply about the questions we want to ask, but like, so like, but like, yeah. So I started the conversation and that's as far as we've gone with it. And
whoa, this is so new.
That's
it's
fantastic.
And we're still sitting on it, and we're still like taking so much time with it, and we're waiting for her she did bring it up again, and she was like, are we gonna write that email? And I was like, yes, we need to talk about those questions, but this is taking me forever to walk through.
What's the apprehension? Like, what is it? You know what I mean? Like, what spins in your brain about meeting
I don't want my kids to get confused about
Sure.
the relationship, right? I don't want my kids to meet this person and then
think that
I
he
have a
will be
dad
in their
now.
life.
Right. And he could
like-
be possibly like distantly in their life. I don't even know because I haven't spoken with him. But like, I don't want any confusion. Like, it complicates things. My 5-year-old boy, he's a baby still. And if I were to tell him, this is your donor. Oh, that's my dad. No, that's your donor. No, that's my dad. You know what I mean? Like, so I have to figure out age appropriate ways to explain it, but also make sure that I'm keeping this open and I'm keeping this honest.
Because I've always thought about that with ours. We're a little different. We're just like kind of like open from the start. We're just sort of like, and 30 feet up and dive into the ocean. And here we are. We're just gonna jump in. I don't know how cold the water is, but here we are. But yeah, like structuring it. Like, do we say this is your donor, or is it like, is it not? It's not your donor mom, right? But it's
right.
Well, but is it your auntie? Like your like cute little like, I don't know, nickname or something.
Yeah, like, and what you decide is what it's gonna be for your family.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And I've talked to like so many folks who've done surrogacy, and like some of them call like the belly mama, or that's your belly mama, and that's
belly
your
mama.
Yeah,
I like that one.
because obviously we have two, right?
Right. Or
egg mama, belly
mama. Or not using the word mama, belly something, and like, yeah, you get creative and you figure it out. But I think the key is to be open and honest from the start. Like, they're gonna figure it out soon enough that
Totally.
my dad's had help, because I see how families are created,
Right.
So it's just, it can get complicated, right, as my story kind of shows. And I haven't, like, that whole story is not wrapped up yet, which is why I haven't talked about it, but I just did. So
Wow.
I'm really happy that you're opening up and talking about it, and I'm excited to see what comes of it.
I'm also I'm super excited to see and maybe just like learn how you like handle the situation, how your
Yeah.
kids handle the situation, and if you learn like little nuggets to like help other people, right, who are going to eventually go through
Yeah.
that.
I mean,
Or if
it's
there's anybody
so-
listening right now, maybe like who's
That-
gone through that, maybe
Oh,
like
please
just
reach
like
out, because I was
like,
just gonna
jot
say,
it
like,
down.
it's so rare for something
Let
like
us
this
know.
to happen in a closed donor situation, like from a bank. You know what I mean? Like, it's so
Yeah.
rare that you randomly find out the identity of the donor, and the donor is like, "Yeah, email me." Like, that's not
Not
really how these
not
things
normal.
go.
So speaking of big changes and big things happening, we have a bit of an announcement now to go over to Jaimie's episode on Queer Family Podcast to listen to
Yeah.
what's going on in our
Big
lives with
changes.
surrogacy
Big changes.
yeah.
and what
It's-
we've decided to do.
It's a journey.
Not
It's a journey.
We're learning constantly.
Mm-hmm.
We're rethinking constantly. And we talk about it.
Yeah.
So pop over there in like 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Whenever
go
we wrap this
now,
up.
right now, you gotta go listen to
Give
the
it a
Queer
listen.
Family
Give it a follow.
Podcast. Yeah.
Double rating, double follows.
Yeah, do all the things, all the things. We should all be following both of these podcasts and be listening.
And Jaimie, where can
weekly.
people find you?
Yeah.
So the Queer Family Podcast is available on all platforms, and we also have video episodes on our YouTube channel, which is YouTube
Love.
at the Queer Family
Yay.
Podcast. We're on all social. Well, we're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube at the Queer Family Podcast. It's the whole name of the show.
All the
And
places.
you can go to queerfamilypodcast.com to see all the stuff we have. There's also a book that was based on the podcast that my
Oh my God.
previous
amazing.
co-host and I wrote together, called If These Ovaries Could Talk, the things we've learned about making an LGBTQ family. It's a very long title. I don't recommend titling a book that long in the future. If I have it to do again, I'm going to
But
make a
everybody
much
knows
shorter
exactly what
title.
it is about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can always email me if you want to come on the show, or if you have questions or comments or anything. You can email me at the queerfamilypodcast@gmail.com. It's all there. So we're telling the stories, and we're uplifting, and we're normalizing, and we're celebrating, and it needs to happen
Yeah.
because the
we
world
agree.
is fucked up.
And with that, no, thank you so much for coming on. It's been amazing to hear your story, to get a bit of your knowledge into our brains, and for confiding with all of us on some very big news that's
Oh my
happening in your life
God.
right now.
I can't believe I just shared all that. My wife's going to be like, what the
so
hell is wrong
honored.
with you?
Incredible.
Anyway, thank you so much for having me. This has been
Thank you.
great.
Thank you, Jaimie.
Thank you.
That was so great having Jaimie on here. I loved hearing her story about IVF, IUI, and this like unexplained infertility diagnosis that you can get trying to go through this.
Oh, it's like idiopathic. Like we don't know what's going on. There's
yeah,
not like
that
a
was kind of
specific
insane
reason.
to me. Right.
Yeah.
But then like pay this bill, pay this bill, pay this bill. Let's try again for 3 years.
Oh my
3
gosh.
years. Do not forget to head over to Queer Family Podcast right now,
Right now.
and listen to our episode on there. You know, we've gone through lots of ups and downs on kind of our decision making through surrogacy and what we're doing, trying to find a surrogate, all of that. And so this is just kind of like the next step there. I don't know. I don't want to say too much here. I don't want to give it away. You have to go over there and listen. So
Yeah.
with that, thanks everyone for being here.
And until next time,
Daddy's out.